Hey sis, how are you? It is A'Tondra Vinchealle, and I hope your day is going really, really well today. If you have watched one of my live videos before, hop in and say hi. Let me know who you are. Let me know who you are watching, where you are watching from. I always love to connect with my people. And if you have never watched one of my live videos before, you don't know who I am, still hop in and say hi. Let me know who you are. Let me know where you are watching from. I always love to connect with new people on this platform. So if this is your first time watching me live, my name is A'Tondra Vinchealle, and I support women who want to love their bodies, love their periods, eliminate their stress, and have more orgasms. So that is the sexy language for what I do. The technical or professional term for what I do is I am a feminine lifestyle wellness coach. Now, before I get into what it is that I wanted to talk about very briefly today, I think that it is necessary for me to go over a little bit of my professional dossier, okay? And I don't typically do this, but the reason why I'm doing this now is because I understand that the topic that I am bringing up now is a really, really sensitive topic. And before anyone gets in their feelings or gets all upset about what it is that I have to say, I just want to be very clear about who you have on the other end of the line, so that you know that I'm not just some random girl on social media who is just like spewing stuff out of the side of her neck, okay? So before I started my own businesses actually, I was in employee training and development. So I was in that field from the age of 17, and I was in that field for about 10 or 11 years before I went back to college to finish my degree. My bachelor's degree is in biological and physical sciences, and I purposefully concentrated my studies in biochemistry, human metabolism, and I also studied neuroscience as well. Now, while I was in college, I also got about 4 years of graduate level and professional level research experience. I actually have a published research study published as a co-first author. And really the only reason why I wasn't listed first as the co-first author is because her last name started with an A. Because the reality is I did the majority of the work on that project, but I co-first authored a professional level research project with one of the largest, most respected cancer centers in the world, not just in the United States, but in the world. So I wanted to go ahead and give you that information up front just so that you would know the background that I come from, okay? And so, like I said, when I was in college, a lot of the studies, my self-directed studies, were in biochemistry and human metabolism, which required that I also studied neuroscience. And I did not originally want to do this video. I did not want to talk about this publicly. Like, these are conversations that I have with certain people in my sphere. And the reason why I didn't want to do this publicly is because the last time I wrote an article about something that was public, something that was sensitive, it went viral. Like, if you go to LinkedIn right now, it's probably got almost 500,000 views on it. And when I wrote that particular article, it went viral. It was shared by so many different people. It was plagiarized even. But it was shared by so many different people, and a lot of the hip hop, I guess, or black, not necessarily hip hop, but black social media, whatever. And on that particular article, by black people, I was called a bitch, I was called a nigger, I was called, they commented that I hated black people, that I must not have loved myself, that I was fat and ugly, where, obviously these are people who have never met me. And so I did not want to do this particular video. But because of communities that I am in, and because of tags that I have received, and because of things that I've seen, I think that it's important to do this. So the title of this video is why watching the movie or the series When They See Us is a form of self-flagellation. You can look up what the movie is about. It's about a series of traumatic events that took place with 5 black boys. I'm not going to get specifically into what the movie is about. But the reason why I will not be watching that movie is because it is not necessary for me to continue to re-traumatize myself in an attempt to prove that I understand what is happening. I'm going to say that again. It is not necessary, nor is it required for me to self-traumatize myself, to re-traumatize myself in an attempt to prove that I know what is happening in society. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. There's this idea that in order for you to say that you are aware of the issues, or that you understand what's happening, that you have to be in this continuous state of self-traumatization, right? Like, you watch the movies, you watch the videos, you listen to the podcasts, like you watch all of the different people, and you're consistently over and over and over and over and over and over and over again re-traumatizing yourself to things that have already happened. And the interesting thing about continuing to watch these things is that our brain is as complicated as our system seems. As complicated as it is also very straightforward. Greetings, beautiful. Greetings. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and cut on my headphones, because I think that might make it a little bit easier to hear me, because I'm in the car with my... Greetings, Akambakani. How are you, beautiful? Right. So our brains work on a series of chemical reactions. Okay, can you see me now? Hopefully you can see me and you can hear me. Okay. So our brains work on a series of chemical reactions. Okay. What that means is that when certain events happen, there is a series of chemical reactions that is triggered in the brain. And that series of chemical reactions starts in the brain, and then it takes place throughout our entire bodies. Okay? It's straightforward. The cascade of events may be a little bit complicated, but the actual mechanism is pretty straightforward. Now let me give you an example. When you watch a scary movie, okay? You know that the people in the movie are not real. You know that the monster in the movie is not real. You know that the things that are taking place in the movie are not actually happening to you. And yet sometimes you'll sit there and you will be watching the movie, and the monster will jump out and go boogity, 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 boogity. And then you jump up and you scream like, ah, right? Like as if the monster is coming through the TV to get you, even though you know that is not real. Well, the reason why this happens is because your brain does not know the difference between you actually watching the trauma and you actually experiencing the trauma. Your brain does not know the difference. And so what happens is, when the monster jumps out and goes boogity, 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 boo, what happens is your brain will go through the same cascade of chemical reactions that it would have gone through if you were actually being chased by the monster. Okay, if that makes sense, throw up some hearts. Say, yes, ma'am. Let me know that I'm talking to the right people in the room. I want to make sure that you're following me so far. Okay. If that makes sense, throw up some hearts. Say, yes, ma'am. Let me know that I'm making sense to you before I move forward. No, I don't want to tag you in the movie. Or you in the video? Okay. So here is what happens in the brain. Anytime you experience any kind of traumatic event, whether it is a stress-related event, whether it is anger, whether it is grief, whether it is sadness, the first thing that is activated in your brain is the amygdala. And the interesting thing about the amygdala is that it's activated before you are actually physically aware of what is happening, right? Just the idea, the beginning of the experience activates the amygdala, okay? Now, once the amygdala is activated, then your hypothalamus is now activated. And then once that happens, there is a series of biochemical events, a cascade of biochemical events. And the end result of those biochemical events is, or are, adrenaline, norepinephrine, epinephrine, noradrenaline, okay? Including cortisol, but cortisol is kind of like a known, right? And the thing about adrenaline, for example, is adrenaline is very addictive. It is an addictive hormone. So just like oxytocin is addictive, adrenaline is addictive. This is one of the reasons why people will tell you that the best way to get through to people is through either pleasure or through pain. Well, pleasure gives you oxytocin, and then pain gives you adrenaline. Both of these hormones are highly, highly, highly addictive. What happens when you are in a constant adrenalized state, knowing that adrenaline is highly addictive, your prefrontal cortex will begin to zero in on the behaviors that cause those hormones to be released because it is addictive. And so literally what happens is your brain will begin to focus on situations that put you in a position for those hormones to be released. So this is one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why drug addiction is so hard for some people. This is one of the reasons why PTSD is so I don't want to say traumatic because that's kind of redundant, but this is one of the reasons why PTSD is so hard to overcome for so many people, because you begin this sort of series, this cyclical series of events where you've released this adrenaline and then your body likes it, and it's like, oh, I like adrenaline. Adrenaline is addictive. This is really, really nice. And so now your prefrontal cortex is zeroing in on behaviors that cause adrenaline to be released, and then you're wondering why you're always in these situations where you're angry. You're always in these situations where you're sad. You're always in these situations where you're stressed out. You're always in these situations where you feel like you want to fight somebody. And what happens is, over a long period of time, when you're always in this heightened state of adrenaline and you always have cortisol flowing through your veins all of the time, then it begins to affect other parts of your brain. And that begins to decrease your cognitive function. And when you decrease cognitive function, you decrease your ability to make integrity-based decisions. And so continuing to watch movies that are traumatic to you continuously put you in this state of self-traumatization. It continues to put your body in a state of stress. It continues to put your body in a state of fight or flight. And then what ends up happening over time is, not only does it decrease your cognitive function, which decreases your ability to make integrity-based decisions, but it actually kills some of the neurons in your hippocampus, which over time kills your short-term memory. And so when you subscribe to this idea that in order for me to be able to prove that I am aware of the issues, in order for me to be aware of the issues, I have to constantly be looking at them. I have to constantly be watching them. I have to constantly be a part of the conversation. I have to constantly be doing all of these things. When you subscribe to that idea, you actually are literally harming your body and literally harming your brain. You're literally harming your brain. And so it's for that reason, and a few other reasons as well, but for that reason in particular, why I won't actually be watching the movie, and why I actually believe that watching that movie is a form of self-traumatization. Because when you're watching that movie and you're feeling all of these emotions, your brain doesn't know the difference. Your brain doesn't know that you're not there. Your brain doesn't know that this is not happening to you. So here's what I want to offer. I want to give you 5 things that you can do right now, that you can implement right now. If you have already seen the series and you're angry and you're frustrated and you're irritated and you are feeling all of these emotions that may not necessarily serve you at your highest and your best level. Now I'm going to say that that if you decide to do this kind of work, this is something that has to be done over a period of time. And this is something that you actually have to be committed to untraumatizing yourself. I don't think that's a word. I just literally made that up. But it's definitely something that you have to be committed to. Okay? So here's 5 things that you can do, literally, that you can do right now. You can do all 5 of them. You can do 1 of them. You can do 2 of them, whatever. But these are things that you can do right now. One of the things that you can do is spend some time in the infrared sauna. Now, why do I say spend some time in the infrared sauna? Well, because the infrared sauna actually penetrates your fat cells much deeper than the regular sauna does. And it helps to release some of the toxic chemicals that have been released in your body that are being held in your fat cells right now. That's a lot of what's coming out in the sweat when you're sweating in the infrared sauna. So if you were going to do that, I would say if you could do that 30 minutes, anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week, obviously the more, the better. That is something that'll be very helpful for you if you are experiencing, any type of like anger or trauma from this particular event. The next thing you want to do, something that you could do right now, is you can actually increase your water intake. The interesting thing about removing toxins or releasing these kinds of things from your body is this, right? And I used to tell this all the time. I still do to my personal training clients. When you enter lipolysis, right, and you're breaking open the fat cells and you're releasing the different contents from those fat cells, what happens is if you're not drinking enough water, the only thing that happens is that the contents will begin to recycle themselves back into your cells. So for example, if you take the first tip, which is to use the infrared sauna, and you're releasing all of these things from your cells, all of these different chemicals from your cells, or the excess of these chemicals from your cells, and you're not drinking enough water, then what's going to happen is what's left is just going to recycle itself back into your cells. Okay? So increasing your water intake, 1 gallon of water a day, if possible, and sometimes even up to 1.25 gallon of water a day. Okay. The third tip, I believe, is really, really helpful because it's been extremely helpful for me and it's been extremely helpful for many of my clients. And that is to make it a point that every single hour of the day, you will take a 1-minute breathing break. What does that mean? That means that for 1 minute every hour, you will spend 1 minute taking deep breaths in. Sorry about that. Deep breath in through your nose, filling up your belly first, exhaling through your lips. And you do this deep breath in, filling up the belly first, exhale through the lips. And you do this continuously for 1 minute. And what this does is this helps to reset your body. It helps to reset your focus. It helps to reset your mind. It helps to reset your brain. Okay? Great stress reliever. The next tip I want to give you, again, if you've already watched this movie and you're angry and you're upset, greetings, beautiful, how are you? If you've already watched this movie and you're angry and you're upset and you're feeling trauma and all of these different things are happening, the next thing that you want to do is for the next 90 days, watch nothing but comedies if you choose to watch TV. Only watch things that make you laugh and only watch things that make you happy. Because what happens when you continue to traumatize your brain is that your brain becomes wired to seek trauma. It becomes wired to seek situations that are going to cause that adrenaline to be released in your system. This is what happens with your prefrontal cortex. And so what you're having to do for the next 90 days at minimum, is you're literally having to rewire your brain. So you're having to rewire your brain from being traumatized to being happy, to being joyful, to being hopeful. Thank you, Tracy. Okay, so this is what you're doing. You're literally rewiring your brain, and this is something that you have to be willing to commit to. And the last tip that I want to give you is probably, I don't want to say it's one of the most powerful, but I do know that it's probably the most transformative of all of them. Is to literally sit down and take some time and rewrite your life story. Because if you have watched this movie, especially if you are a black person, I'm not even going to say person of color. Okay, I'm just going to be straight up and I'm going to say black. If you have watched this movie or if you have watched this series and you are a black person, there are a lot of feelings and a lot of things that are coming up as a result of that. There is anger that is coming up as a result of that. There is fear that's coming up as a result of that. There is hopelessness that is coming up as a result of that. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to literally rewrite your life story. Write a life story that does not include being black as a liability. Write a life story that does not include being black as something to be afraid of. Write a life story where you don't have to be afraid to send your sons outside because they're dark-skinned black boys and you think that the cops are going to kill them. There's an interesting thing that happens with the brain when you actually sit down and write things down. This is why when you hear people talk about manifestation and you hear people talk about moving forward in their goals, one of the first things they will always tell you to do is to write it down. Even in one of the sacred texts, it says, write the vision and make it plain. And so what I want to encourage you to do is to literally take some time and rewrite your story. And you can rewrite the same story over and over and over again. You can rewrite a new story every single day, but take some time every single day to either rewrite or add to your new life story that does not include you being black as a liability. Because here is the thing that happens with these kinds of things. Here's the thing that happens with these kinds of things. The better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets. But if you also believe the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the worse it gets. Because you will always get more of who you are. You will always get more of who you are. You will always get more of who you are. You get what you tolerate. You get what you expect, and you get what you think about. And what happens is what you think about is what you expect to happen, and therefore when it happens, you tolerate it. And so if you are constantly thinking that being black is a liability, and you are constantly thinking that you have something to be afraid of, and you are constantly thinking that you don't have the same position as everybody else in life, let me explain something to you. You don't get to live in a universe and say that I live in this abundant universe where I can use the laws of manifestation, where I can manifest whatever it is that I want, where I can speak it and believe it, I can blab it and grab it, God is on my side, all of these different kinds of things. You don't get to say that and then turn around and be like, oh, well, because I'm black, some of that stuff doesn't actually apply to me. Yeah, I live in an abundant universe, but if I'm black, then it's going to be kind of harder for me to access that abundance than everybody else, because then you're literally saying that you don't live in an abundant universe. What you're saying is that everybody else lives in an abundant universe except black people. Now, if a white person came on social media or on TV and says everybody lives in an abundant universe except black people would have a fit. And yet this is what you tell yourselves every day. Yes, I can do this, but I have to work 30 times harder because I'm black. Yes, I can do this, but I have to work 30 times harder because I'm dark skinned. Yes, I can do this, but it's going to be harder for me because I'm black. Yes, I can access what's available for me, but it's actually going to be a little bit harder for me to access that. Yes, I can use the laws of attraction, but it's going to be a little bit harder for me because I'm black. Absolutely not. You don't get to do that. You don't get to have that. That's not how this works. And so by taking the time to sit down and rewrite your story, to do that kind of creative writing, it allows you the opportunity to inundate your brain, inundate your mind, inundate your spirit, inundate your energy with something that will serve you. And with something that will move you forward, because let me tell you what happens. Remember what I said at the beginning of this video, right? It's so interesting, because when you talk about the law of manifestation, you talk about the law of attraction, and so many people are like, oh, this is woo, this is that, that frou-frou la kind of stuff. But this is the actual, your brain works like this. When you do things that make your body feel good, your prefrontal cortex begins to focus in on behaviors that cause those hormones to be released. That is how this works. This is a scientific phenomenon. This is something that has been proven through experimentation. And so when you begin to rewrite your new story, and you begin to rewrite a story that feels good to you, and it feels good, and it feels good, and it feels good, remember, your body doesn't know the difference. Your brain doesn't know the difference. And so your brain will begin to release hormones and chemicals as if that were actually your life experience. And then when your brain begins to release the hormones as if that were your actual life experience, then your prefrontal cortex will begin to focus on the behaviors that cause those things to happen. And then you will find yourself in situations that allow you to make that new story your reality. So, this is what I have for you. I hope that this was helpful. I really, really hope that this was helpful. If you find this video helpful, please like and please share. That's how I get my message out. That's, wonderful stuff. Plus, I know there's a whole bunch of people that need to see this. So please, please, please. Also, I gave you 5 self-care tips today. If you want more self-care tips, more tips on how you can create an experience that is pleasurable for you, that allows you to live your life in pleasure and flow, I have an absolutely free download for you. If you go to www.themermaidswisdom.com, so that's mermaids with an S, www.themermaidswisdom.com, and click on that pink button that says free self-care checklist. You can click on that button and you will be taken to, oh, thank you so much, Tracy, to where you can download that free self-care checklist. Okay? So I hope that this was helpful. Please, please, please love on yourself today. Love on yourself today. Love on yourself today. Love on yourself today. Be gentle. Be gentle. Be gentle with yourself today. Okay? I love you so much. And I wish you all of the joy and the passion and the pleasure and the ease and the flow that you can receive into your own life experience. Thank you so much for watching. Love you. Bye.